Criticism number 5. Yeah, but fine, Idris, you guys are going to get to high-income economy, but I see poverty still in the country, and you people in the government are not doing enough for the bottom 40%. Let me show the good news about what Malaysia has been doing for a long time, since 1970. This chart here is the number that describes our fight against absolute poverty, miskin tegar. And we've been able to reduce that from 49% in the year 1970 to now less than 0.6%. For those of you who want to look at the statistics, the word Gini coefficient describes the level of inequality in a country. So the lower the number, the better it is. So 1, if it's 1 Gini coefficient, that's totally unequal. So if it is 0, then that means it is equal. Now Malaysia has made an improvement. So now we're at 0.42. It's an improvement from what it was in 2009, 0.441. And also the bottom 40%, people who are in the lower income bracket, their income has increased radically from 1,400 in the year 2009. It's increased to 2,537. The incidence of poverty hardcore has really dropped to 0.6. In this chart, you can see the top line is the annual growth for the average household in the whole of Malaysia. If you take all household, our average growth of their salary over the last 4 years is what is called 8.8%. Now this one below here is the midpoint. The midpoint, that means if you take all of the household, rank them from 1 to bottom, and you take the midpoint. That one has also grown by 10.1%. Inflation over the same period is only grown by 2.4%. So if you take 8 minus 8 or 10 minus 1, 10.1 minus 2.4, the difference is called the increase in disposable income. So that means the average household in Malaysia or income have to introduce minimum wage in 1982. Nobody dared to implement it because it was difficult to do. It is today, ladies and gentlemen, under the leadership of Prime Minister and this cabinet, we were able to actually implement it. And by doing the implementation, we lifted the lives of 2.9 million people outside from abject poverty. And that is a very, very big improvement. Let me now read an external report, what the World Bank has said about Malaysia. This is the World Bank report that was recently released last year. Let me read it clearly. Malaysia has in many ways become a success story in shared prosperity. Shared prosperity means that all households experience income growth. But growth is higher for those households at the bottom of the distribution, a pattern that leads us to lower inequality. In the past 40 years, Malaysia drew on its natural resources to nearly eradicate absolute poverty from 49% in the year 1970 to 1% in 2014. So this is what the World Bank is saying about us. So I think the criticism is unfounded. Let me also take another external perspective. This is coming from the Asian Development Bank. The ADB, in the conference of May 2013, they said since 2009, which happens to be when our Prime Minister took over, Malaysia has made the biggest progress in reducing poverty. 55.3% reduction in poverty because of the work of the government. If you compare that, Philippines only 2.5%. Ours 55% reduction. Indonesia 6%. According to them, Thailand had made it worse. By 62.6% made it worse. Vietnam had improved by only reduction of 6%. So according to ADB, Malaysia had made the biggest progress in reducing abject poverty. So that is from the external perspective. Criticism number 6. I know the economy is growing, government revenue is achieved record high, but how come I don't see that the government is using the revenue to help the people. Let me say it's true that our government revenue has become record every year. So this is a new record, 185 in 2011, etc. But you know, we were in deficit. When we started, our fiscal deficit stood at negative 6.4% of GDP. That means our revenue is less than our expenditure. So when you increase your revenue, you're still at the point that you are less than the expenditure. So that is, we were using our additional revenue to reduce our deficit. So you can see every single year, we reduce our deficit. We have not removed entirely our deficit. Kita ada lagi deficit. But the reason why, because we are using some of our money for development expenditure to grow the economy. Okay? Let me just say, how do we spend that money? Commitments. Of that, 67 billion is spent on paying salaries of our 1.4 million civil servants. So, but the people that simply look at the number and say, well, this is money is all because of corruption, that's not true. Pensions, there is 18 billion ringgit we have to pay pensions for the civil servants. So then, how much do we spend per year to pay for our debt, our borrowing? Altogether, 23 billion. How much subsidies do we put? Altogether last year, 40 billion ringgit of subsidies for electricity, for tolls, public health, public transport, all of this, 40 billion. The grants that we give to state government, because all state government, federal government give grants too, and also the state-owned enterprise, the GLC, kita ada grant juga. And that is altogether 23 billion. And the others, 15 billion is for scholarships and for grants to school, etc., etc. Now, all of the ministries put together, all 30 ministries or 29 ministries, 34 billion ringgit. So we have very little room to maneuver because the commitment is fixed. And that's why the government is in a very tight spot. Although we get our increase in revenue, we are still struggling because we are starting on a deficit. So to be clear, ladies and gentlemen, we are doing the best we can with the limited resources that we have, but that is the best we can do. That is why it's got no choice. We have to reduce the subsidy. No choice. Criticism number 7. I am from Kapit. Some of you do not know Kapit is a very small place in Sarawak, Ulu Lachau. So the guy said, I am from Ulu Lachau, and I do not think you people in the government are doing enough on rural infrastructure. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is that in the last 4 years or 5 years, we built the most kilometers of rural road in this country for the same period of time since independence. We build altogether, if you string all the rural roads, that's 4,533 kilometers of rural roads. It is like the distance from Johor Bahru to Bangladesh. And that is actually a phenomenal thing. So this is very good. These are the numbers of people we gave water to, electricity, all those villages, and a lot of them, you know, we live in a country that is very modern in this part, in the city, but in the rural places where I come from, my tribe is called the Klabit tribe. There are only 5,500 people in the whole world. We are so small, you can put us all in the zoo. Very, very small. But we live in the village there. You know, we don't have electricity in my village until only this year. I am worried about the children's education in this country because I believe that the standards of education has dropped in this country. What we're doing in Malaysia is that we are also concerned about this. That's why we've introduced the National Education Blueprint. Very thick document about the roadmap, how we are going to improve it. By the way, we've ranked every school in this country from number 1 to number 10,000. So DPM agreed that we put in band 1 means the best performing school, but you don't say which one, number 1, number 2, band 2, and band 3. We have band 7 is the worst performing. The good news is over the last 5 years, we have made big improvement in band 1 and 2. 31% of the schools in band 1 and 2 and now have increased from originally 19.4%. That is massive improvement. We also have a big reduction in the band 6 and 7, including the very, very rural schools. Let me say, despite the fact that some schools do not have good facilities. I went to a very rural school in Sarawak. This is an Iban school, Sekolah Ulu Lubai. Do you know what time the kids go to school every day? 5:30 a.m. What time do they finish in the school? 10 p.m. Whoa. And they had a small room like this. And in the room, all the awards, they menang. All sorts of awards. From Turkey, Commonwealth, they menang. The scores of the students are very, very good. In the year 2011, I believe it's one of the best primary school in Malaysia. We have done a lot of work on literacy and numeracy. We have made big improvement. Today, the numeracy score of our students in primary 1, 2, and 3, and 4, based on the Linus test, is already now 98.9%. And literacy is now 88%. This was big improvement from what it was before when we started. We are also concerned about the proficiency of the English language. So we decided to put all of our English teachers to sit for the Cambridge placement test. You know, when I spoke about this, I was invited to speak at Oxford University last month. And I showed this chart to the faculty leaders at the government school in Oxford University. The dean almost fell off a chair. He said, Idris, can you imagine you go and ask all the teachers in England who have been teaching for 20 years and you ask them to sit for the test, you have a strike. But in Malaysia, we did. Under DPM, we have now organized an event, a very big program, to take them to classroom over weekend and at night to make sure that they improve their command of English language. We are very serious. So people who think that we are not serious about what we're trying to do under the program, this hopefully will tell you that we are very serious about it.